Hey Gators and sports fans, get all your Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the PodUp with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. PodUp, because we are Gator fans. So say it's great to be a Florida Gator.
Hey, Gator Nation. Welcome into PodUp with Zach Abolverdi filling in for Shane Matthews, joined by JC. Hope everybody is enjoying your Wednesday as we get through this week and get to talk about a huge victory by the Florida basketball team last night over Tennessee. JC, how's it going, my man?
Hey, Zach. It's great to be with you this morning. Welcome aboard here. And I tell you, that game last night, I think it took the basketball world by storm, Zach. I mean, who thought that a team losing three starters when we heard about Colin last night would just absolutely blow out the sixth-ranked team in the country by 26 points. I mean, if you had told me, Zach, I'll give you Tennessee and 25 points, you probably would have bet your car on it. But it didn't happen. I mean, 26-point win over the highest-ranked team that Florida's played this year and the sixth-ranked team in the country. So I was floored by it, Zach. That's the last thing I expected. I'm happy. I mean, I'm happy Florida did that. Good for Mike White. Good for those kids. Good for Omar Payne, who came in and filled in. Yeah. For Castleton, I mean, when Castleton goes out, Zach, what was your thought, right before the game there?
Yeah, I mean, you obviously Florida's already been, fighting really some talent deficits with Keontae Johnson and Scotty Lewis out. When you get the news that Colin Castleton's not going to play as well, that's just a recipe for disaster, especially going against a Tennessee team that had not only been doing well this season, but has really had Florida's number the past few years. And, I talked to Graham Hall from the Gainesville Sun, who will be joined by today. Right before he went to the game, he wasn't looking forward to going to the arena because he thought it was just going to be a slaughter. And it was, but not what we expected.
That's right. It was a slaughter of a different sort. And, she and I had talked about this on Monday, how we were dreading this game coming off of what happened to the Gators in Starkville, Mississippi, the way they were just dominated in the post down low in the front court. And I certainly did not see this coming. But Omar Payne stepped up. I think he had, 9 rebounds, 9 points. Yep. That was very important. It established a presence for Florida. It gave Florida some confidence. I think offensively, Zach, you could probably comment to this better than me, but that seemed to be the one game last night seemed to be the game they were most confident in offensively. It just seemed like they turned it on.
Yeah, and they really played with an edge, and I think the guys played with a lot of freedom out there, and maybe it was because everyone was counting them out, and they just knew that they had to step up with their role given the absences against the Vols. But who knows what this can do for this Florida basketball team moving forward? But this was such a key win for them, and really something that they needed after what's been just a really frustrating season for this team to deal with.
Well, and Noah Locke, we can't forget him. Noah Locke comes in. Scotty Lewis has missed his third straight game now. Maybe you have an idea of when he could come back. I don't, but here he is starting in place of Lewis, and he gets 14 points and played almost the whole game. I think it was somewhere around 35, 36 minutes the kid played, and really, really answered the call. I mean, this is the kind of next man up mentality that you want from a basketball team, Zach. You can't look backwards. You can't be feeling sorry for yourself. Nobody cares about your problems. Everybody's got their own. And here come the Gators. I mean, here come the Gators. 26 points, and with a game coming up against Georgia, maybe an opportunity now to establish some momentum. All it takes is a couple of wins, and boom, you've got a little streak going and some confidence, and maybe Lewis gets back soon out of this safety protocol he's in, this health and safety protocol, and we can see, the Gators with a little bit more depth.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you all know, PodUp with Matthews in the morning. We're coming to you from the Crime Prevention Security System studios, large enough to save you, small enough to care. And obviously, the Gators, we thought were going to have too small of a lineup going up against the Vols, and had a lot of guys really step up, play, season highs in minutes. Quez Lover, Omar Payne, Jatobo, Lane. And really, when you look at, this top 10 win for Mike White, obviously this is, huge for him and his program. But you look at the margin of victory. I mean, this isn't the first time that his squad has beat a top 10 team handedly. You look at some of the other wins that he's had. They beat West Virginia by 17 points. They beat Kentucky a few years back by 22 in the O-Dome. And then obviously the big win over Auburn last year, and then the 26-point win over Tennessee last night. It's like whenever this team figures it out against a top 10 team, they really put it on them.
It's crazy, isn't it? And I was reading your piece on Twitter last night, 5th victory over a top 10 opponent, and 17 points or more as a margin of victory is just shocking. It's almost it's kind of like when teams watch Florida get on these waves, and it just seems to just fall all into place. They almost want to just get the hell out of the building. And I saw no fight in Tennessee last night. I was very surprised because they seemed flat to me. They did not seem like a team that had just posted a 6 in the national rankings when they came out. 6? Really? So this shows you about the rankings, doesn't it? And I think, we just do it weekly. It's just a weekly thing. It's part of the game. It's part of the sport. We all watch it. We all like it. But I really have to question sometimes why these teams have these moments, whereas you could have made the case for Florida against Mississippi State, with the exception of the last 2 or 3 minutes of that game. They go 7 minutes without scoring. So it is a game of momentum. It's a game of runs. As you know, you've watched a lot of basketball in your career, and certainly I think Florida is a team that, for whatever reason, it's one way or the other. And when they get on the roll, man, it's they put them to bed, and the game's over. It's over.
Yeah, and last night's win, JC, it tied Florida's largest win versus a top 10 team in the AP poll era. And the only one that matched that was the 26-point win that they had over Ohio State all the way back in 2006. So it's been a while since Florida put it on a top 10 team like this. And you mentioned, it being a game of runs, JC. I mean, was always, as we were watching it last night and I was tuning in, I was always kind of, weary that Tennessee would make a run in that second half. And they did, within, under the minute mark, they got within 11 points of Florida and looked like they were, in position to strike. And then the Gators close out the game with a 20-5 run. So just really impressive that they were able to put them away like that. And like you said, that's the second straight game where, at the end, they've really been playing their best basketball, and they were able to come back against Mississippi State.
So what do you expect upcoming with Georgia? Is Scotty Lewis, do you think we're going to see him? Do you think it's going to take longer? Is there no way of knowing? I'm not sure. I know right now, Evan, did I just go away? I don't see me on here anymore. Okay, I'm up. Okay, I'm good.
Yeah,
But no, what do you think? Georgia's coming up Saturday. This is a game you want to try to build some momentum on.
Yeah, absolutely. I would think, given the time that he's been out, I'm sure if this is, COVID related, it's having to do with the quarantine situation, whether it's 10 or 14 days. So that's probably kind of what he's under at this point. And you'd hope for the Gators that you get him back for that Georgia game, because to have him back in the lineup, to be able to go and play that team and get a win, that's kind of going to give them the momentum that they need to kind of build on this. But for obviously their tournament hopes and just the season that they want to have, this was a huge moment for Mike White's team.
Yeah, and speaking, you mentioned the tournament here, Zach. I noticed last night, I read somewhere on Twitter that the tournament, did you see the dates for the tournament changed? Did you notice that?
I did not see that.
In March, the first 4, so typically when the tournament happens, everybody gets wound up about the Thursday afternoon, Friday afternoon first, so-called first round, the second round, whatever it is. It's the first games that are played after that first 4 are played in the middle of the week. Well, now this year, the first 4 is going to be on Thursday, March 8th, and the first round is going to be on Friday and Saturday. And I don't really understand the whole meaning behind this. But then and then the second round will be Sunday and Monday. So the first round is March 19th and 20th. Second round will be the 21st through 22nd. God willing, they play this tournament this time, and we get a March Madness to enjoy. But
yeah, it's obviously with the schedule changes and everything, this is I guess what we get, with COVID and just how crazy everything's been. Obviously, everyone, at the end of the day, just hoping that we can get to a tournament. And after seeing what happened last year with the SEC tourney not happening and us losing March Madness, whenever they have to figure it out, however they have to make it work,
Right.
We'll all be for
That's
it.
right.
And obviously, at this point, Florida's just trying to get a spot there. And this will go a long way. But
sure.
What was crazy, JC, thinking about Castleton being out last night is obviously how well he had been playing as of late. The last 2 games, he had 14 block shots. He was really coming to his own. And you remove him from the lineup and you wonder who's going to step up. And this is the second straight year against a top 10 team where Omar Payne has showed up in a huge way. And I think starting to show us maybe, where and why he was rated so high coming out of high school.
Well, what is their plan? Is there a way they can get Omar Payne more involved when Castleton's in? Because it seemed like to me.
Exactly. I think that's, Castleton's presence and obviously him coming to Florida is probably held back Payne as far as his involvement and role. But the way he played last night, man, and just what he's shown when his number's called, especially on these big stages, I guess you got to find ways to get him more involved.
You do. And, I mean, he's a productive player. He stepped up. I was happy to see it because I like the guy. And I certainly have been impressed with the way Castleton's been, the most impressive player so far in conference play this year, playing for Florida. And, this injury he had, this ankle injury, I don't know. What is the status on that?
Yeah, I'm not sure what Mike White said as far as what the recovery time could be on that. I'll tell you what, he looked like he was ready to go run into the game last night. Celebrating with his guys. I'm not sure. I would hope obviously with an ankle, we're hoping that's not a high one, that he won't miss too much time. But if he does, the one thing that maybe you can bank on is what Omar showed you against Tennessee, and if you can get that from him more consistently, and that's one of the things that he talked about last night is after the game, Omar said I've shown that I can play like this, and this is like the best effort that I can give. Now I just need to do it on a night in, night out basis, and some of that comes with getting the opportunity to do it. But this is what he came to Florida for. I mean, as highly rated as he was, and with what Florida was missing from their big man, they needed him to kind of come and develop into this player that he's shown that he's at least capable of being. And they just need to get more of it now.
No, they absolutely do. And it's good to see these other kids, as you mentioned earlier here, that they had a chance to show what they can do and beat a quality team. I mean, this was not just a ho-hum middle-of-the-week win. This was against the 6th-ranked team in the country who was highly favored to win. So Florida, an impressive matchup, or rather an impressive game there, Zach, and I'm excited. I guess we don't have to listen to the Mike White, executioners this week. At least we get a reprieve from the folks ready to string him up and drag him by horse across town. So hopefully we get a little reprieve from that this week. Shane and I have talked about this over and over again. I mean, this coach is not going anywhere. He will be your Florida coach. And when the team plays like this, you're happy. And sometimes, yes, there are nights when it just doesn't work. There are injuries. There are protocols. There are all kinds of distractions and things that can take away from a team that sometimes the coach just doesn't control, has no control over, and everybody's dealing with it. You think right now, Mike Krzyzewski's, with the way Duke's going, with the way they've lost some games on their home court this year, specifically to some teams that came into Cameron Indoor, you think people are jumping on his back right now? Look, he comes right out after one game they played. I couldn't remember who it was. And he started complaining about COVID this, COVID that. What are we doing as an NCAA? Why are we starting the season so early? Why don't we push it back to January? Remember all that little rant he went on after somebody came in and just blew him out? So it's just difficult. It's difficult for everybody. I don't know if you saw the sack, but I saw the coach, I guess her name is Kim Mulhaney or somebody for Baylor, or the women's basketball coach, complaining the other night that she doesn't know what to do because of the CDC, this, that, the other, making all these excuses for the fact that she's confused and she isn't comfortable coaching. Seriously, girl? I mean, she's not comfortable coaching? Is that what you just said? You think anybody's happy about the way things are right now, playing in an empty arena?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, this is obviously not only in basketball, but across the sports world, what players and coaches have had to deal with and adapt to. And, not everyone is able to. And obviously, when you get in situations where, you got quarantines and players catching the virus, it makes for a tough situation,
ends.
but everybody's had to deal with it. It's not like,
Yes.
one
Yes.
sport has been hit worse than the other. And it really comes down to, how can your team and your coaching staff handle this the best and be most obviously disciplined and following all the protocols, but also being able to focus and just
Right.
keep it on basketball or whatever the sport is that you're playing. And look, man, to this Florida basketball team's credit, it's not only COVID that they've had to deal with, but it's their star player collapsing on the court and everything that went with that. Obviously losing, Scotty Lewis here in his recent week, and obviously Colin Castleton. I mean, there's so many excuses that they could point to as to just chalk it up to, hey, we can't go out there and play. We're not going to be at our best. If we lose, it is what it is. Those guys haven't taken that approach. And it's been, it's so easy for Mike White, I'm sure, throughout this season to say, what do you guys want from me? I'm missing my best player. But he never once has he made that point. But, when they get into a game like Kentucky, for instance, and they lose by 17, they lose by 18, and Keontae Johnson had 19 points the last time they played the Wildcats, well, that's something you got to take into account.
You do. And I appreciate coaches who don't complain about it and who just do their jobs.
Yeah.
He just does his damn job, and he knows he's being well compensated, and he's not going to go out there and bellyache like some of these other prima donnas. I mean, Baylor's women's basketball coach should be damn happy she's got a job. And the thing is that everybody should be happy they're playing games or trying to, right? So this is important that the fans understand what the teams are going through right now. Did you watch any of the other games last night in the SEC, Zach?
I did not. I saw some of the results, but obviously some good action last night.
Alabama played.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what's gotten into Nate Oates, but 105 points at LSU.
Yeah, that was that was impressive, and you just obviously that team and that program has really really come on this season, and I didn't expect to see maybe that much points total that they put up on LSU, but it's just it's been impressive to see what they've built over there, and you're used to Alabama being so dominant in football. Not like this in basketball as well.
LSU was had only one loss in the league. I mean, they were 5-1, I think, before.
Yeah, that was their second loss. Yep.
Yeah, so this was shocking. It was also surprising that what Ole Miss did to Mississippi State out in Starkville, I thought, by 20 or 18 points.
Yeah, they held Mississippi State to 46.
Yeah, and the bad news for Mississippi State is they get to go to Tuscaloosa on Saturday. So I think, listen, you've got I think a league right now where there could potentially be 5. Shane says 4. I think that we could maybe get 5 teams in. Maybe Florida could slip in there, maybe 6. But right now we're looking at.
Yeah, and obviously, see how this plays out, with the rest of league play. But, Alabama, man, being 7-0, 12-3 right now on the season, they without a doubt been the bright spot so far in SEC play. And, we'll see. I mean, obviously, Kentucky is as inconsistent as they've been, 4-8 on the year. Can they find a way to turn it around and get playing at the right time? That obviously is going to be an opportunity for Florida, too, if they can get a big win over the Wildcats. That'll help their tourney chances. But, one thing that I loved last night, and we can talk about this some, JC, is obviously everyone sees what's going on with the Tennessee football program and what happened with Jeremy Pruitt, and we'll get JC's thoughts on that. But what came out yesterday, and I don't know if you folks saw this, but on the Dan Patrick show, he went on there and said that a source of his from Tennessee let him know that one of the recruiting violations entailed recruits receiving McDonald's bags full of money. on recruiting visits. And of course, this started making the rounds on social media yesterday, and you saw the memes. I think one of the best ones that I saw was someone had taken a picture from, I think it was the Clemson visit that they took to the White House for their national championship. And, the president had all the fast food laid out. And someone had taken a photo of that and put Jeremy Pruitt's face on it and said Tennessee recruiting visits is what they look like. It was so good. But as we get into the game last night in the arena, of course, Florida's playing Tennessee. And at one point during the game, they showed a Florida fan on the Jumbotron with a McDonald's bag in his hand, and the fans just lost it. Just classic college sports moment. And then even, the Gator basketball official Twitter account, they got in on the action and started having some fun toward the end of the night. And then when the Gators beat the Vols, their official graphic that they tweeted out, the caption for it was, "We're loving it."
We're loving it.
Props to Gator Nation for having fun with that last night.
Yeah, and props for Gator Nation for knowing so much about Tennessee and their issues. I think, it's out there, right? But the Gator fans are a knowledgeable fan base, and they certainly follow what's going on in the league. And Jeremy Pruitt now being fired with cause is.
Yeah, that was not a good look for the Vols. And really, too, when you look at just how this program has kind of fallen off and fell down from the elite of the SEC, it's crazy to think that if Tennessee could have made a different coaching hire, how much of a difference that could make. And what really always brings me back to that is that they went after Dan Mullen twice, JC, including the year when Florida hired him, and they weren't able to get him on board. If Dan Mullen doesn't come to Gainesville and goes to Knoxville, who knows how differently their program could have turned out and where it would be right now. And a lot of people, like the Jeremy Pruitt hire or thought that it might be able to work, but clearly it backfired on them in the worst way.
Who would you surmise they go after? What do you think? I mean, I don't think it's going to be Hugh Freeze. Shane seems to think there'd be a chance for that. I like Shane's idea of this guy, Dave Clawson, out of Wake Forest. He would be a non-controversial pick and an offensive minded coach. That I think they need an offense guy.
I do. I would like that hire. I think that would be a great hire. I think the one thing that they will definitely need to do is hire not only a guy that's been a head coach, but a guy that's been a successful head coach. Because you look at some of the hires that they've made, and obviously hiring Jeremy Pruitt as a first-time head coach, we've seen how that worked out for some other SEC schools. Doesn't always end so well. I mean, to be able to go get a guy that's proven, that's shown that he can, have successful seasons as a head coach, but then also a guy that he is either familiar with the SEC or familiar with the area, and certainly Dave Clawson would check those boxes. But I don't know, man. This is, I heard this earlier in the week, and it was a great point. Everyone looks at Tennessee and can they get back to their glory days? Can they get back to when they were the elite football program? And I think the problem for them, JC, is when they were elite and when they were dominant and a top 5 program, Georgia wasn't what it was, and Alabama wasn't what it was, and Clemson wasn't what it was, and even Ohio State wasn't coming into the South and being able to recruit like they can now. And that's, I think, taken away from a lot of potential talent that Tennessee could have added to its roster that it used to in years past. And that's really, I think, kind of hurt them.
They've got to reestablish an identity, and they've got such a great university, the atmosphere, the fan base, and some great alumni. Simply, they just lost an identity, I think, in the last 2 decades. Lane Kiffin was the guy I thought that could do some damage there, but he only lasted 1 year. And it really, I think, set forth the dysfunction that we've seen at that school. I thought it was a good hire, but it showed that after that, they just lost direction, and they need a guy who can bring in an identity and bring some excitement to Tennessee football. Not that I'm worried every night about Tennessee football, but it is, a program that has history in this conference and has won in this conference in the past, albeit so long ago, Zach. So, it'll be interesting to see what they do. Kevin Steele right now will obviously be on board. since they've already hired him? They kind of went this very.
Yeah, it was interesting to see him get that job. Now he's been, an interim head coach twice now, in this short time period. So, that's been really interesting. And I want to remind you guys that this show is brought to you by Center Bank or Center State Bank. We put business first. We are the target community bank in the state of Florida, and understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. Center State has 4 convenient Alachua County locations. Center State Bank, member FDIC. And, you mentioned Lane Kiffin, JC. I mean, that's to me the last time that Tennessee has really been relevant, right? I mean, that's the last time.
It is.
And it's just amazing how far that they've fallen off. And when Lane Kiffin left, to think then that Tennessee would never be the same after that was crazy. Because they weren't too far removed from when they had dominant teams under Philip Fulmer. But now, the decision that he made as the AD to hire Jeremy Pruitt has certainly backfired. And it was interesting to see him go through his press conference earlier this week, JC, where he gave his reasoning for why he was stepping down as the AD. Basically, he's just deciding to retire. Come on, dude, you're getting out of the way. You're not trying to catch these penalties that are coming.
Yeah, no, it's an awful situation right now. He's just imploded. But Zach, it seems like this connection imploded because I'm missing a lot of what you're saying, unfortunately. So I can't hear very well what's being discussed. Unfortunately, my power is off. Thank you, Cox Cable. And I don't really know what to do about it right now, but I keep missing what you're saying. So I might have to just step aside for now, Zach.
No problem, man. Obviously, connection.
I can't hear you.
Oh yeah, connection Wi-Fi issues is kind of the new norm now with Zoom and all this stuff.
That's right. Well, hey man, good luck to you. It's great seeing you, and I'm sure we'll cross our paths will cross soon. And go Gators!
Yeah, absolutely, JC. Good to see you and talk to you as well, man. We're gonna catch you guys with this first break. When we come back from the other side, we'll be joined by Graham Hall from the Gainesville Sun to discuss more of this big win that the Gators had last night over Tennessee. We'll also get his thoughts on Florida football and all the news right now surrounding the Gators. Also want to remind you guys that this show is brought to you by Celebration Point. Celebration Point is where the Gators come to celebrate with premium brands like Bass Pro Shop, Nike, Prime and Pearl, Dave & Buster's, and coming in the spring of 2021, the HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, and Visor's Rooftop Bar. We will see you at Celebration Point, where Gators come to celebrate. We'll be right back after this break.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise.
G-Tech Sport, keep your athletes in the game with G-Tech Sport.
Celebration Point Town Center, Center State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Ribs, Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Miapa Latin Cafe, Rap Spot, Okido America, Gators Dockside, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Dar Shakow Insurance. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, podupwithshane.com, and click the Advertise button or call Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to PodUp with Matthews in the Morning. The show is brought to you by Wrap Spot. Refresh your vehicle and your brand with a vehicle wrap from Wrap Spot. January is your lucky month at Wrap Spot. Mention promo code Shane and receive 13% off your vehicle wrap. So make sure you guys take advantage of that this month, something that I need to do as well. We'll be joined shortly by Graham Hall from the Gainesville Sun to get his thoughts on Florida's big win over Tennessee last night. He was in the Exactech Arena to take in all the action and talk to Coach White and the players after the game. So we'll get their reaction to this win and how they can build on it moving forward. And, at Gatorsports.com, you can check out Graham's story. Also today, you guys can check out a rundown of Florida's kind of roster with the football team and where it's at right now, because over the last couple weeks, there's been so many changes between players transferring out, players transferring in. And, we kind of wanted to give you guys a rundown of where everyone is at, just so that you have a sense of kind of where things are at, because, they just welcomed, obviously, the early enrollees to campus and a couple transfers that enrolled the first week for the spring semester. The latest addition that they got from the transfer portal, Daquan Newkirk, he actually made it to campus for mid-year enrollment. So he's going to be participating in spring football along with Antonio Shelton, the graduate transfer defensive tackle that they got from Penn State. So to have both of those guys make it to campus for the spring, to be able to go through practice, that's going to be big for the Gators. We saw that they added recently a graduate transfer from Mississippi State to come in and be their starting kicker. One of the guys who was still on Florida's roster as a walk-on, Zach Sessa, he has decided to enter the transfer portal and play elsewhere. So he was going to, I think, be in competition for that starting job until Jace decided to come over from Mississippi State. So that's kind of where Florida's at with its specialists. We also know that, Jacob Finn has decided to transfer out, Florida's starting punter. That means Jeremy Crawshaw is going to be taking over in 2021, the Australian punter. So that'll be fun to watch. And then just looking at the seniors right now, because as you all know, the NCAA put in the decision in August that seniors for the 2020 season could decide to come back for one more year, and they would not count against the team's 85-man scholarship. So the Gators have already had some guys that have decided to come back. We saw Jeremiah Moon make his announcement last week. And then reportedly, according to The Athletic, Stuart Reese is going to be coming back for a 6 year. So those are two guys that are going to take advantage of this extra year of eligibility they've been afforded by the NCAA. One guy who hasn't made a decision yet is TJ Slayton, Florida starting defensive tackle. I think it's expected that he's probably going to turn pro, but just nothing official yet from him. And still nothing official yet from a handful of seniors that haven't announced kind of what their next move is. Gene DeLance, Marlon Dunlap, Brad Stewart, Donovan Steiner, and Rick Wells are all guys that could come back for one more year if they choose to. So those are kind of just guys that we're still waiting on to hear from. But we're not waiting to hear from Graham Hall anymore. We're joined by him from the Gainesville Sun. Graham, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. How's it going, Zach? Thanks for having me today.
No, absolutely, man. Obviously, filling in for Shane today, we wanted to get some hoops talk, and what a good time to have you on after last night's game, man.
Yeah, man. When we talked before the game, I was a little bit apathetic,
I know,
pessimistic, whatever you want to call it. But I was thinking that, we were talking on the phone actually when I found out Colin Castleton would be unable to go. Just to give full context, yesterday, what is it today? Monday morning, I found out that Colin Castleton was actually feeling a little more sore from the ankle injury that he suffered at Mississippi State than it was previously indicated. He was able to return to that game, played 33 minutes, but was feeling the lingering effects and sat out Monday's practice. If you go and read my preview of the Tennessee game about the opportunities, go look in the headline, that Florida had against Tennessee, the whole second half of the article, I asked Mike White and starting point guard Trey Mann all about the opportunities that Omar Payne would have moving forward, not just against the Volunteers, not to tip any hands, but moving forward. This is someone who, as a sophomore around this time last year, during his freshman year, we saw him have big games, especially against number 4 Auburn, when he had that, monster double-double after not really seeing that. And then Colin Castleton comes in here, wows everybody. It's far better than I think many people anticipated with college basketball. transferred out of Michigan, has probably the deepest front court right now in all of Power 6 basketball. When he came back to his home state, people were optimistic about his potential, giving him an extended opportunity, and he won that starting job over Omar Payne. So Omar Payne was really dealing with some confidence issues, like everyone else, a lack of preseason camp, and really struggling to find a role. Last week, before this performance that he had last night against the Volunteers, where he started and had 9 rebounds, 5 offensive rebounds, all in the first half. Last week, where Florida went 1-1 against the Mississippi teams, he played 12 minutes total. I mean, this is a guy who was not really ready for the opportunity when you look at it from a usage perspective, and then walks in there 2 hours before tip-off and says, hey, you're starting tonight. And that's just really kind of the whole, you use terms like Gator standard with football all the time, next man up. That's how it was last night against the Volunteers. And despite all that, Zach, I couldn't have predicted the outcome.
Yeah. Where is Colin at right now in terms of recovery time? When could the Gators get him back? And Scotty Lewis as well.
Both of those guys are hoping to get back against Georgia. Okay. I think a promising indicator last night of Scotty Lewis's return was getting Alex Klatsky back last night. He actually got in the game there with about 90 seconds left against the number 6 ranked team in the country. That shocked me.
And he fired up a three-pointer.
May know.
He did. Fired up a three-pointer.
Really objectively, just because he is a walk-on and he's someone that, Zach, I think you can relate to this. I wrote, 1,600 words on him when he got to Florida, and that is really rare, especially for a walk-on. I was hoping, low-key, that it was going to, go in like the rest of Florida's were last night. It did not, unfortunately, but I think he'll get another chance because Coach White has said that he, for a 2-week stretch there in preseason camp was hitting every three-pointer, and there's a reason that they use him often to lead the scout team. So him getting back in the game, who also is Scotty Lewis's roommate, they both sat out the last week, now 3 games for Lewis due to COVID-19 health and safety protocol, quote unquote, is what Florida is calling it. Mm-hmm. Lewis is close to returning though, and Florida's hoping to get him back against the Bulldogs. Same with Castleton. But we'll see there. Ankle sprains can be pretty tricky recovery, especially for a big man. You don't want to rush anyone back and especially risk anything long-term, especially someone like Castleton, who, like I said, was having a very promising start to his UF career. And after what you saw to Omar Payne last night and Jason Jatobo, and he even got 12 good minutes out of Osai Osifo, who I have to be honest is very, very offensively limited. I think he would admit that in the scheme of college basketball, but yet hit both of his field goal attempts last night. So if he can find a role, Florida's front court will be much better. Anthony DeRuggi only played 17 minutes last night, but still was effective. Had a stretch there in 30 seconds where he was able to come up with the ball twice when Tyree Appleby was able to poke it away there and then hit that three-pointer, which really it doesn't show up in the stat sheet too much, but that was when Tennessee had just gone on a 9-0 run after Florida went up by 20 points. And then the Gators get 8 points in a quick 30-second run right there, really demoralizing for the opponent. So if you can have that effort, that type of confidence, that type of night, normally that you see those type of plays against no offense to the mid-majors out there, but a lower type opponent than someone coming into, Billy Donovan court. You don't see those type of steals against the number 6 ranked team in the country. No. That was just an atypical Tennessee performance. But I think if Florida can bottle that confidence every single night, this is a team that will make the NCAA tournament in my mind.
Yeah. Now, obviously, with Omar Payne being a highly regarded recruit coming out of high school, a lot of expectations. Florida had a need with their big men. And I talked about it with JC. But I want to ask you, just from the sense that you've got, I don't know if you've got a chance to talk with him this season before last night, how do you feel like he's handled maybe not living up to those expectations and that ranking that he had out of high school so far, but also being a guy that, how's he dealt with maybe not getting frustrated or wanting to run away to the transfer portal with them bringing Castleton in?
Well, you asked about Omar Payne? Sorry. Yeah, that's a guy that anytime, a former 4-star guy, an in-state guy as well, who was doing all the right things. And like I said, I thought he was going to be up there with Trey Mann with most improved player this year with Florida. Strictly when you looked at the opportunity and what the Gators were looking to do, you looked at the front court options that they had coming back. He was clearly the more athletic option over Jatobo. the opportunity was there for him to win the job. But then you have a guy come in, which, as we know with football, that is a case with the transfer portal every single year now. There's no such thing as a returning starter in my mind anymore, especially when you're going to get an actual preseason camp. And as you saw with spring football last year, with football that was essentially non-existent, you did have kind of that system where guys who were returning starters had a head start on the job. But the basketball team gave Colin Castleton a legitimate opportunity to come into Gainesville and win the job. And that's what he did. His work ethic gave him an opportunity to do that. And I think that when you have a guy come in and not only just, it's one thing when a guy comes in and they've put up numbers elsewhere. That's understandable. That's not going to be so demoralizing. That makes you hungry because you have some help. When some guy comes in here who doesn't have the production that you do, transfers in, all the weird circumstances of this year, they don't have to sit out, but yet they don't have the same type of chemistry and development team. When they beat you out, absolutely what you say, that can be extremely demoralizing. And I'm going to give Omar Payne a lot of credit for how he's handled that. A lot of guys would have come in there.
They would have jumped in the transfer portal. They would have left.
They would have jumped in the transfer portal, and this is that's not, while I don't think Omar Payne is a guy who would have jumped in the transfer portal because he's very close with a lot of his teammates. This is a time that last year you've seen big men leave in December in the transfer portal. Gorjak, Gak, several years ago, Florida was never able to get John McBoonu back for injury reasons. I mean, they've had various front court players that people have counted on, just unable to participate. And so it would not have been out of the realm of possibility for Omar Payne to have said, hey, I'm out of here. You also signed a guy, Osai Osifo, to come in here and praise him, saying that he's going to help run your press. This could be a very frustrating opportunity for Omar Payne, or circumstances for him to be in. And so for him to handle it the way that he did, I think is incredibly impressive, and it's indicative of his maturity moving forward. And I think that he's going to get more minutes if he continues to handle the opportunity the way that he did last night. But we'll have to see here, because every single night, especially with underclassmen in the SEC, is a thing where you have to continually reassure them. And when one team starts defending you and you're ineffective one game, that can absolutely lead to a mental drop off in your confidence, and that can have a huge effect on a game in and game out basis until you no longer can let that significantly affect you. And there's players in the NBA that still struggle with that. So this is going to be a consistent thing for Omar Payne, for him to remember this night, last night, and how he attacked that and use that same consistent energy. Guys are too caught up when they come out of college of saying, hey, I need to go out there and score 20-10. There's a reason coaches use coaching cliches like roll, find your way to fit in the offense. If Omar Payne can be that effective blocking shots, getting offensive rebounds, drawing double teams when he calls for the ball in the low post to free up Florida shooters, that's a huge thing that I think a lot of people miss in the scheme of the game. There's a reason you dump it into the low post and have a guy even be a weapon down there, because you can run guys on the baseline, free up shooters. You saw Florida had more shots in the open three-point attempts against a very good defensive team and a very good rebounding team than they had, I think you could say, all SEC play going back to the first couple games. So if they can continue to have a low post threat, that's going to make everyone else more effective offensively. And that's part of Omar Payne's role. There are guys in the NBA who go out there and they don't, like I said, light it up every single night. They get assists, rebounds, defense, and they make a career of that. They make millions on that. If you can look at that perspective and make that your role, you can be very effective. And I think that's what they've been telling him for a long time. And if that can kick in, Florida may have another legitimate low post threat.
Yeah, man, that would be even better to pair along with Castleton. We're speaking with Graham Hall from the Gainesville Sun. This show is brought to you by Chris Doring Mortgage. At Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. Another guy who had a great game last night, Graham, was Tyree Appleby. I've just been so impressed with what he's shown this season, and just a great get for Mike White to add to the roster, and obviously the history that he has with Appleby is really cool. But really a guy that I think so far is I think outperforming the place that he came from, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, Cleveland State, no offense to that program whatsoever, but I think if you can give any credit to mid-majors, they often find quick guards that these top programs undervalue. I think too much of an onus is put on size at the point guard position, and understandably so. I don't want to say that, oh, they're all wrong by saying, oh, you can only have a 6'4" taller point guard. But I don't think that's necessarily the case. You have to find a point guard who can find a way to still take high efficiency shots, highly effective shots, while utilizing their size and their quickness. Because too often you find guys that come in and still think that they can match up with guys in the low post, when usually that's not as much of an issue at the AAU and high school level. When you can find a guy who is confident with their size, look at Quez Glover, look at Tyree Appleby, you absolutely utilize them and often run your offense through them. I think that if you look at how Florida was able to have everyone else, in a sense, change what they do on offense around Andrew Nembhard's skill set the last couple of years, you could see that experiment, unfortunately for Florida, didn't work, although Andrew Nembhard is a very good player. And if you look at what he's doing at Gonzaga, that can work when you get when you get the mix of shooters, swingmen, and low post threats that Florida unfortunately just missed out on having that full combination due to a variety of reasons. Either way, when you can have this dribble drive offense, high energy, high tempo offense, young guys can be highly effective, and short guys can be highly effective in that. And you're seeing that with Tyree Appleby. I mean, he came in here knowing that Florida came in here with him, knowing that he could score, had 899 points in his first 2 years at Cleveland State, has to sit out more than a year because he didn't get that free sit out year, just like Anthony DeRuggi. And then it was all worth it for him. He's now being used, made his fourth start last night, Zach. He's now scored 48 points in conference play, had a 20-point night last week against Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Finished it up last night, looked very good. This is a guy that I think that, again, moving forward, 13 points last night, if they can get him to, like I said, take high efficiency shots, move the ball, and like I said, with the steals, 3 steals last night, if they can get his energy to translate on defense, this is going to really be a exciting Florida team to watch. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they build off of this moving forward. Anytime you're facing Georgia, you want to go out there and beat them, just like FSU. Unfortunately, circumstances outside of the game itself took away Florida's chance at really beating the Noles this year. But anytime you can go into Athens and possibly pick up a victory against a Georgia team that a well-coached Georgia team with Tom Crean, you absolutely want to do that. And on top of not avoiding a letdown after a 26-point victory over the number 6 team in the country, after this, Florida's got the SEC Big 12 Challenge against West Virginia. So a little bit of a break here in the SEC schedule before we get into the end of January, that February slate that's really going to be brutal. One more thing to watch out here, and I don't know if this is going to happen, so it may just be speculation. Florida, every team wants to play 27 games this year. Florida had to postpone 4 games this year due to the unfortunate situation with Keontae Johnson. They are still looking to reschedule those games so they don't finish with 23, because that could have significant effect on their chances of making the NCAA tournament. You look at some of their opponents that normally would give you chances at these top quadrant victories. Kentucky, that game was a quadrant 3 game that Florida lost. That's not great for them. This was a quadrant 1 victory last night. Obviously, if they can pick up a couple more of those, that's significantly going to help them, as well as having a chance to reschedule these, no offense to these programs, these quote unquote cupcake teams, in-state teams, and James Madison, I believe, if they can get those as well, chances to do what they did last night, get 20-plus point victories as they continue to build to what they hope to see a tournament run.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the 899 points by Tyree Appleby with his 13-7 performance last night. He reached 1,000 points for his career. So shout out to Appleby. I've been really impressed with what he's brought to the table. Final question for you, Graham, before we let you go. Just what was your overall takeaway from Mike White after the game and how he felt about the win and what it does for this season and this team?
Well, to Mike White's credit, and I think some people would paint me as more sympathetic to a coach's plight, especially right now with everything that you have to juggle. I mean, we often don't talk about the transfer portal and how slim chances you have. I mean, people, especially I think football fans, often say, "Oh, can go out there and hit the transfer portal." That's not as much of a luxury in a sense for basketball programs. They get one shot every single year, and the guys that we've been talking about, Colin Castleton, Anthony DeRuggi, Tyree Appleby, those are transfer portal guys that Florida is capitalizing off of right now. They were sitting down 5-star Scotty Lewis for the last 3 games. They've lost Keontae Johnson, the SEC Player of the Year in the preseason. Colin Castleton, their breakout player, was out last night. And fairly so, Mike White isn't a guy to come out there and pat himself on the back. He's not a guy to go out there and give himself too much credit or say, we knew we could beat these guys, anything like that. He's not going to get too high or too low. He's going to assess it, I think, very fairly. And one of the things he said, I think you can take a lot of confidence from if you're a Florida fan. They went out there last night and used a lot of rotations that they didn't use earlier in the season, rotations that they didn't think would necessarily work. They thought that they would have issues setting their press with Jason Jatobo in there, and they didn't last night. Even though it was just 13 minutes, it was an impressive 13 minutes. And if they can continue to add that wrinkle into their defensive sets, that's going to work wonders for Florida moving forward. The same with having Omar Payne out there at the 4. If you can have him at the 4 and run him at the power forward position, which we had not seen before last night, if you can do that moving forward, you're going to create a lot of size issues for opponents moving forward. You go back to that Mississippi State loss where Florida had a shot at the buzzer to tie the game, down 72-69, just had a well-defended shot. Trey Mann was trying to draw the foul. It was miraculous in my mind that Florida even had an opportunity there because they got out-rebounded by 21 and gave up 52 points in the paint. So when you talk about a lack of physicality, no offense to Anthony DeRuggi, but they were even undersized there at the 4 when it wasn't him, when Keontae Johnson, for everything that he did well, was at the 4 there, just 6'5". If they can run 2 guys out there that are 6'10", Florida's going to create a lot of matchup problems and create one of their worst and fix one of their worst issues, which is the rebounding right now.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You look at Florida right now, ranked at the bottom, heading into the game against Tennessee last night, ranked at the bottom of the SEC in rebounding. And you look at what they did to the Volunteers against a sizable Volunteers team with a 6'10" guy in Fulkerson. Florida out-rebounded them by 8 last night. And I mentioned Omar Payne on the offensive glass. If they can continue to get those second chance points with their high-energy offense and they can get back and set the press, this is going to be a very good team. And I know that sounds very optimistic, but if they can do all those things consistently, which is extremely difficult, I have to note, if they can do that consistently, this is a team that could be very good. One more thing you have to note, though. You can't be too confident because you also must factor in the fact that Tennessee did not play their best game. They started 2 for 9. They missed a lot of wide open 3-point shots, and that contributes to your confidence. When you see other teams just getting clean looks and it seems like they have it, just, the basket is closed for them, it gives you a lot of confidence at the other end. So
and their shots were not going in last night.
They weren't, and you have to note that. And I think the context does matter. As much as Florida played well last night on both ends of the floor, Tennessee just really couldn't hit a shot. And something that has plagued the Gators, and that people say, "Oh, why do you harp on this? Why do you harp on this?" Foul trouble. The Gators avoided a lot of foul trouble issues, while Tennessee did not. Yves Pons, who I had on my SEC preseason All-SEC team, picked up his third foul really early there and had to sit, even though he got put on skates at one point earlier by Trey Mann, who I had to note as well. You talk about guys playing through foul trouble. Trey Mann had to sit the whole rest of the first half after picking up 2 early fouls. One I got to mention was, if you go back and look, was fairly clean, and he was pretty angry about it. I got to say, fairly, understandably so. But you go back and look how Florida's guards stymied him with Quez Glover coming in, who didn't play a minute at Mississippi State. How Quez Glover came in, and how Tyree Appleby, the performance that he had in relief of Mann, really didn't make that foul trouble an issue for Florida like it did for Tennessee. One more thing you got to factor in, Zach. We talk about motivations, little storylines all the time. I was hoping to ask Mike White after the game if the performances by Quez Glover and Jason Jatobo last night were possibly motivated by how they were snubbed by their home state. Real quick, those guys are Knoxville guys. Knoxville, Chattanooga guys. Yeah. Quez Glover was the Knoxville Player of the Year. And Tennessee, when he was at the end of his cycle, he waited to sign in the early signing period in November. And then when April came along and he won a state championship, Tennessee came calling, and he was hoping that this was the chance to play for his hometown team. And this is no disrespect to him here, and I hope he doesn't have a problem with me telling the story. But Tennessee was not full-on willing to come calling with a scholarship. Mike White, after seeing that state championship, came in, saw him work out. They worked him out on Friday. After the workout, he offered him a scholarship, and this was about a week and a half before signing period. And Quez took the weekend to think about it. Tennessee didn't call back. Tennessee didn't offer a scholarship. Florida signed Quez Glover. And last night, when he was hitting those threes and coming up with some clutch steals, you had to be thinking that there was some motivation in his mind. And the same with Jason Jatobo. That's a guy who dealt with foot injuries, different reasons why he stopped being recruited by Tennessee. Yeah. Dealt with foot injuries right before his junior season, which is so pivotal, as you know, for recruits heading into that upperclassman campaign on the recruiting trail. Mike White stayed in contact with him, got him to come out of Tennessee, come to Florida, even though he couldn't play much this final 2 seasons. You had to be thinking that there was some motivation, that these guys kind of slept on me as he was getting some blocks at the rim, even though
well, I'll tell you what, Graham,
both back to come. So didn't get to ask those, but you had to think that.
Yeah, no, and between that and obviously all the McDonald's bags on the Jumbotron, it was a fun night in Exactech Arena, man. I really appreciate you taking the time out this morning, man, to give us your perspective. Make sure you guys follow Graham on Twitter. Read all of his work on Gatorsports.com. Great to catch up with you again, man. All right, appreciate Graham for the time.
I really appreciate you having me on. I hope everyone out there is staying safe, staying healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Graham, really appreciate the time, and glad that we got to, between him and JC, talk about a win for the Florida Gators over the Volunteers instead of what everybody was expecting was going to be a lopsided loss. Did not turn out that way. So appreciate everyone for joining us. This show is brought to you by Wrap Spot. Stay safe, and we'll see y'all tomorrow.